wreckage of a shared life, holding a house that suddenly felt too large for one heartbeat. But I didn't sell it. People said I should. Downsize, they told me. Too many memories. They were right about that, but I couldn't leave. I had raised my children here, Ryan and Clara, through storms and school plays, scraped knees and graduation caps. This house was the proof that I had kept us alive. So I kept working, teaching English at the middle school until retirement, living off my pension, trimming my roses every spring. The neighbours waved. The mailman called me Miss Cole. The days became a gentle routine of tea, morning walks, and tending the garden. James once said looked like a patch of stubborn love. I had peace. Until Ryan brought Naomi home. I still remember the first night she stepped through the door. Tall, perfect posture, nails like polished glass. She smiled too wide, called me Mrs. Cole, even though I told her to say Marianne. She looked around like she was touring a museum. "Oh, this place is quaint," she said, running her manicured fingers along the family photo wall. "You've really kept it authentic." I knew what she meant. Old, outdated, beneath her. Ryan stood behind her, beaming, trying to impress her. He had always wanted to make people proud, first his teachers, then his bosses, now his wife. When he told me they'd met at a real estate conference, I thought it was nice that he'd found someone ambitious. I didn't realize that ambition can have sharp edges. For a while I tried. I really did. I cooked her favorite meals, invited her to help me in the garden, even offered to redecorate Ryan's old room for when they visited. But she barely looked up from her phone, scrolling through houses she was selling for millions. One evening, as we sat for dinner, she asked, "Do you ever think of selling this place, Marianne? It's a good neighborhood and the market's hot. You could get a fortune." I smiled politely. "This house isn't for sale." She laughed. A short, cutting sound. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just think sometimes holding on to the past keeps people stuck." Ryan reached for her hand, kissed her knuckles, and said nothing. That silence, that nothing, it stayed with me. A few months later, they moved into a condo downtown. They came around less and less. Naomi said she was too busy with clients. Ryan stopped calling me Mom on the phone. It became, "Hey, Marianne." Clara noticed. "You know he's changing, right?" she said one night. I just shrugged. "He's in love." But deep down I could feel it, like the slow peeling of paint from an old wall. You don't see the damage at first, but one day the whole layer gives way and you realize the foundation underneath has been quietly cracking. Still, and I kept my routine. Morning walks, tending the garden, cleaning the same corners I'd cleaned for decades. Every time I scrubbed the kitchen counters, I thought of James wiping his hands after fixing the sink. Every time I watered the roses, I remembered Ryan bringing me dandelions as a boy, his face smudged with dirt, shouting, "For you, Mama." Some memories bloom, others haunt. The night before everything changed, I sat on the porch with a cup of chamomile tea. The air was heavy with the smell of rain. Across the street, a new family had moved in, laughter spilling out from their living room window, the kind of laughter that once lived here too. I looked around the porch, at the chipped railing James built, the cracked step I kept meaning to repair, and whispered to the house, greater than don't worry, less than I'll never let anyone take you from me. At the time it felt like a promise. I didn't know that by the end of that year, my son and his wife would try to do exactly that, and I would have to choose between keeping my family and keeping my home. But that night, before the storm began, the house still felt warm. The lamp glowed softly in the living room. The clock ticked in rhythm with my heartbeat, and for the first time in years I allowed myself to believe that maybe peace could last. I used to think you could tell what kind of person someone was by how they treated your home. Naomi proved me wrong. She arrived with sunshine that first morning. Literally and figuratively, the sky was glowing, and she came through my door holding a bouquet of lilies so perfect they looked plastic. Fresh from the market, she said, kissing my cheek. For the woman who raised my favourite man. Her perfume lingered long after she left the room. It smelled like success, sharp and expensive. She was dressed like she was heading to an interview. Cream blazer, gold earrings, hair tied in a sleek bun that didn't dare move. I remember thinking she looked like she belonged in one of those glossy magazines, Baltimore Women in Business or something like that. Ryan followed her in, his arms full of boxes, his grin stretching ear to ear. Mum, we thought we'd spend a few weeks here before the condo paperwork clears. Naomi's real estate firm has her swamped, so it'll give us time to breathe. Breathe. That's not what it felt like. It's strange how quickly peace can turn into performance. Suddenly, every inch of my home became a stage for someone else's criticism. Naomi was polite, but her words carried invisible razors. Greater than these curtains, vintage. Oh, I just love how small everything feels. Cozy, I mean, you actually keep books in every room. How sentimental. I tried to take it in stride. I even found myself apologizing for things that didn't need apologizing. Oh, that's just an old photo. The frame's cracked. Or, yes, I know the wallpaper's faded. James always meant to replace it. But what I should have said was, this is my home. It doesn't need to impress you. At night, when they went upstairs to Ryan's old room, I'd sit on the porch with my tea and listen to the muffled laughter through the walls. The sound used to bring me comfort. Hearing my children's joy, now it made the house feel smaller, like it was holding its breath. Naomi started helping around the house, reorganizing my kitchen cabinets, replacing my ceramic jars with glass ones. She said it would make the place more modern. One afternoon I came home from the store to find her rearranging the living room furniture. Oh, I hope you don't mind, she said, dusting her hands. The sofa just looks better angled toward the light. Makes the space feel bigger. She said it like a professional staging a property, not a guest living in someone's home. Ryan smiled and said, she has an eye for this kind of thing, Mum. She's helping me see what this place could be worth. That word cut through me like cold water. They stayed for weeks that turned into months. Ryan spent long hours at work. Naomi held online meetings in my dining room. Her clients' voices filled the house through her Bluetooth headset. Words like offers, commissions, renovations. Sometimes I'd bring her tea and she'd wave me off with a finger, too busy to look up. The house that had once been filled with warmth now buzzed with ambition. It wasn't all bad, at least not at first. She'd compliment my cooking, tell me I should monetize my recipes, and occasionally help fold laundry. But there was always a thin film of something performative on everything she did, like she was rehearsing for approval that never came. Then one evening, I overheard her on the phone. She didn't see me standing by the doorway. Yes, it's a great property, solid bones, good neighborhood. If it ever goes on the market, it'll sell instantly. Yeah, sentimental owner, but the son's reasonable. My chest tightened. Property, sentimental owner. She was talking about my home. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain tapping on the window, and a feeling I hadn't known in years crawled up my throat. Fear, not of losing the house, but of losing Ryan. I knew how easily he could be swayed. As a boy, he'd trade his lunch just to make friends. As a man, he'd trade his time, his sleep, his peace, anything for someone else's approval. The next morning, over breakfast, I said gently, "Ryan, I heard Naomi talking about selling houses in this neighborhood. I hope she's not thinking of—" He cut me off. "Mom, don't worry about that. She was just talking business." Naomi smiled over her coffee. "Oh, Marianne, you're so protective of this house." "It's sweet." She reached across the table and patted my hand like I was a fragile old lady. "But imagine the possibilities. A family could move in here. You could get a smaller place, easier to manage, less lonely." "Lonely?" I repeated. She tilted her head, her tone soft, but her eyes gleaming. "Well, you live alone, don't you?" "I just think sometimes people get attached to things when what they really need is a change." I smiled, but my heart burned. "I've had enough change in my life, dear. I'll keep my house." Her lips twitched, the smallest flicker of irritation. Then she laughed it off, called me adorable, and changed the subject. That was Naomi's gift. She could wound you so gracefully that by the time you realized you were bleeding, she'd already handed you a napkin. The tension grew quietly after that. Little remarks, sideways looks. One afternoon she told Ryan I seemed tired lately. The next week he asked if I'd considered moving closer to Clara, just until the renovations here are done. Renovations. No one had said a word about renovations. I looked at him, my son, my baby boy, who once built Lego towers on this very carpet, and I saw the shadow of another woman's ambition reflected in his eyes. Something was shifting. The house felt it too. The floors creaked more often. The walls seemed colder, the air heavier. Even the clock in the kitchen started to lag, as if time itself was slowing down to watch what was coming. I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of the end. The moment the house that held me for decades began to loosen its grip. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from pressure. You can feel it in your bones, like the air is holding its breath, waiting for you to give in. That's what the house felt like in those days. Too quiet, too polite, like it knew a storm was gathering just outside the walls. It began one Sunday morning, the kind that smelled like pancakes and rain. Ryan had come home early from work, looking nervous, the way he used to when he had to confess breaking a window as a boy, Naomi sat beside him at the kitchen table, her hands folded perfectly, her phone face down for once. "Mom," Ryan started, glancing at Naomi, "there's something we want to talk to you about." My stomach sank. Those words never lead anywhere good. Naomi smiled, all charm and strategy. "Marianne, I know how much this house means to you. Truly, it's beautiful, but it's also a lot for one person to handle." I set down my tea. "I've been handling it just fine." "I know you have," she said sweetly. "But think about it. The plumbing issues, the yard, the taxes. You deserve a rest. What if you let us take over some of the responsibility? Maybe renovate? You could stay with Clara for a bit, and when we're done, you'll have a refreshed modern home." Her words were honeyed, but every drop stung. Renovate, refresh, relocate, all polite ways of saying replace. Ryan reached for my hand. "Mom, Naomi's right. You're always fixing something, worrying about bills. We could handle it all for you. Maybe even sell the place later. Get you a smaller home near Clara. Something cozy. You've done enough for us all your life. Let us take care of you now." He smiled like he was offering me kindness, but I heard the echo of another meaning. "Let us take what's yours." I stared at the table, the same table where I'd graded papers late into the night, where James and I planned our future, where Ryan once carved his initials into the wood when he was 7. Every inch of this home held fingerprints of my life. And yet, I saw the hope in his eyes, the way he wanted me to say yes. Naomi leaned closer, her voice soft. "It's not forever, just a few months. We'll make it perfect for you." I wanted to laugh. Perfect for me, or perfect for them? But love makes you foolish. It makes you see your child, not the adult making a mistake. It makes you want to protect them, even when you're the one being sacrificed. So I said the words that would haunt me later. "All right. Maybe it would be good to take a break for a while." Naomi's smile widened just a touch too quickly. Ryan exhaled, squeezing my hand. "You won't regret it, Mom. You'll love staying with Clara. She's been saying how much she misses you." I forced a smile. "Yes, she has." But inside something cracked. That evening, I sat alone in the living room, the light of the setting sun bleeding through the curtains. I looked at the old family photographs, Ryan's graduation, Clara's wedding, James in his work uniform. I whispered to the picture frame, greater than, "Am I doing the right thing?" The house didn't answer. It just groaned softly, the way it always did before the rain. Over the next few days, Naomi became the perfect daughter-in-law. She helped me organize things, which really meant packing away my life. She labeled boxes with neat handwriting: kitchen, old, bedroom, storage, sentimental, keep. That last one made me pause. "Keep?" I asked, holding the box. "Oh," she said lightly, "I just wasn't sure if you'd want to bring all those things to Clara's. Some of them are outdated." Inside the box were James's books, the ones with his notes in the margins, his voice, his thoughts, the things that made him him. "Outdated," I repeated quietly. She didn't hear the tremor in my voice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Clara helped me move the following week. She wasn't happy about it. "Mum, I don't like this," she whispered while we packed. "Ryan and Naomi have been acting Strange. Are you sure this is what you want? I lied. Yes, honey. It's time I let go of a few things. Because that's what mothers do, isn't it? We let go, first of hands, then of homes, then of whole pieces of ourselves, convincing everyone it's for the best. The day we left, Naomi hugged me tightly at the door, smelling like roses and triumph. Don't worry, Marianne. We'll make this place shine. You'll come back and won't recognize it. Her words chilled me. Won't recognize it. Ryan loaded the last box into his car, smiled and said, "Love you, Mum. This is just temporary, okay?" I nodded. Of course. But as we drove away, I looked back through the rear window at the porch James built, the roses blooming by the gate, the window that still had a crack from a baseball Ryan threw when he was 10. For a moment the house looked almost alive, watching me leave, and I swear, as the car turned the corner, I felt something deep in my chest tear loose. A quiet, invisible sound, like a thread snapping inside a heart. That night at Clara's apartment, I couldn't sleep. The bed felt wrong. The air didn't hum the same. The city noise outside the window was foreign, impatient. I kept imagining my house, sitting there in the dark, the lights off, the walls breathing without me, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to feel homeless. Not because I didn't have a roof over my head, but because the roof that mattered was no longer mine. Some betrayals don't come with thunder or shouting. They arrive quietly, like a whisper you wish you hadn't heard. It had been 3 weeks since I moved in with Clara. 3 long uncomfortable weeks of pretending I was fine. I kept telling her and myself that it was temporary, that Naomi and Ryan were fixing up the house for me. But every night when I lay in her guest room, I'd hear the faint hum of traffic and miss the sound of my old clock ticking in the hallway. Steady, loyal, constant. I called Ryan once or twice. He said they were making great progress. His voice was cheerful but distant, like someone speaking from behind glass. Naomi never got on the phone. I told myself she was busy. I told myself everything was fine. I told myself a lot of things that weren't true. Then, one Friday morning, the truth came knocking, not from my son, not from Naomi, but from Grace, my neighbor across the street from Maple Avenue. I still remember her voice, trembling, hesitant. "Marianne, honey, I didn't want to upset you, but I thought you should know. There's a big for sale sign in your yard, and people are walking in and out all morning, realtors, strangers." I felt the world tilt under me. "What do you mean for sale?" "It's up on the listing sites." I saw the photos online. They've redone the living room, painted the walls white. Your curtains are gone. They're calling it a cozy family starter home with vintage charm. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. "Grace, that's not possible. My name's on the deed. Sweetheart," she whispered, "you better come see for yourself." I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I just know that 1 minute I was in Clara's apartment, and the next I was in the car, heart pounding against the steering wheel. The drive back to Maple Avenue felt endless. Every red light mocked me. Every familiar landmark turned into a stranger. My hands were cold, my mind spinning through disbelief. denial, and something darker, the creeping sense that I had been played. When I turned the corner, my breath caught. There it was, my house, my home, standing under a bright white sign planted in the front yard. For sale, Sterling Realty Group, Naomi's company, her name right there in bold print beneath the logo. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My body refused to move. Then I saw them, a young couple, maybe in their 30s, walking up the porch steps with a realtor. My porch, James's porch, the one he built with his hands, sweating in the summer sun. The woman pointed through the front window and smiled. The man nodded. They were already picturing their life there, their furniture, their laughter, their future. In my home, I stumbled out of the car, crossed the street like someone walking through a dream. My heart was hammering so loudly it drowned out the world. The realtor looked up, startled, as I reached the gate. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling. "What's happening here?" She gave me a polite, professional smile. "Oh, are you one of the neighbors? We're just showing the property. It's a lovely house, recently renovated, great potential." "I'm not a neighbor," I whispered. "I'm the owner." Her smile faltered. "Oh, the documents list the property under Ryan and Naomi Cole. Are you related?" "My son," I choked out. "That's my son." I could feel the edges of the world blurring, the grass tilting under my feet, the sky too bright to look at. The young couple exchanged an uncomfortable glance, murmured an apology, and slipped back inside. I leaned on the gate, staring at the door that once opened only for family, that same door where James carried me across the threshold the day we bought the house, that same door where Ryan ran in with scraped knees and birthday balloons. Now strangers were walking through it, measuring rooms, commenting on light fixtures. I pressed my hand to my chest, as if I could hold my heart in place. "Greater than no," I whispered. "No, no, no." Tears blurred my vision until the world dissolved into color and sound. The click of heels on the walkway, the faint hum of conversation inside, the rustle of leaves that sounded like voices from the past. Grace came running from her porch, wrapping her arms around me just as my knees gave out. "Oh, honey," she cried, "I'm so sorry. I thought you knew I couldn't speak." I just clung to her, my body shaking, the world spinning. When I finally managed to breathe again, I looked at the house, the new white paint, the gleaming windows, the life scrubbed out of it, and I felt something inside me die quietly. They hadn't just taken my house, they'd erased me. Later, back at Clara's, I sat at her kitchen table with a copy of the online listing pulled up on her laptop. There it was, my living room, stripped bare of its warmth, my floral curtains replaced by grey drapes, my pictures gone, and beneath it all in fine print, the seller's name, Ryan Cole. I scrolled through the paperwork until I reached the ownership section. My name was missing. It was as if I had never existed. I felt the air leave my lungs. I tried to call Ryan. No answer. I called again, until his voicemail became the only thing I could hear. When he finally picked up hours later, his voice was tired, evasive. "Mom, please don't be upset," Naomi said. I hung up. I couldn't bear to hear her name from his lips. I sat there in the dark, shaking, whispering to the empty room, greater than he sold my home. My son sold my home. The clock on Clara's wall ticked, just like the one in my old kitchen. Only this time it sounded like a countdown to something I couldn't yet name. And deep down, I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Grief is strange. It doesn't end. It just changes colour. For weeks, I drifted through Clara's apartment like a ghost. Half there, half gone. I made tea I never drank, folded laundry that wasn't mine, stared out the window at a skyline that didn't belong to me. Every morning I woke with the same hollow thought. They took everything. But one evening, as the rain tapped gently on the windows, something small shifted. Clara came home with a cardboard box she'd picked up from my old porch. This was sitting behind the gate, she said. Maybe the movers forgot it. I didn't want to look. Everything connected to that house hurt like a bruise. But when she left me alone, I sat on the floor and opened it. Inside, under old newspapers and a broken clock, was a faded leather sketchbook. I knew it instantly, the soft brown cover, the initials embossed faintly in gold. J.C. James Cole, my husband, my builder, my dreamer. I ran my fingers across the worn surface, my breath catching. He used to draw in this book every Sunday morning at the kitchen table, coffee steaming beside him. One day, he'd say, I'll build every home I draw. I flipped open the first page. Pencil lines danced across yellowed paper, arches, staircases, rooms flooded with light. Each sketch had notes in his neat handwriting. Warm wood here, windows wide enough to hold sunlight, a space for a piano, and on the last page, in faint, faded ink, he'd written a title, The House She Built. I stared at those words until my vision blurred. He hadn't built that one. He'd meant me. A sob caught in my throat, but it wasn't the same kind as before. It wasn't despair. It was something older, deeper, like a buried ember reigniting. James built that house for me. Ryan and Naomi could take the walls, the rooms, the bricks, but not what it stood for. That was mine. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel small. I felt angry and alive. The next morning, I went through James's old folders, tax documents, deeds, loan papers. I'd always trusted Ryan to handle things, but now I realized that trust had blinded me. I spread the papers across Clara's dining table like puzzle pieces, my hands shaking but steadying with each page. There, between the mortgage renewals and property tax statements, I found it, an older deed with both our names, mine and James's, dated years before Ryan had helped with the refinancing. My name had once been on everything, so how had it disappeared? I didn't know where to begin legally, but Clara did. You should talk to Harold, she said, that afternoon. He's a retired lawyer, lives down the street. Helped my sister when she was scammed by her contractor. Sharp as ever, I hesitated. I can't afford a lawyer. Clara smiled. He doesn't do it for money anymore. He does it for justice. Harold lived in a small bungalow that smelled faintly of pipe smoke and lemon polish. Books towered everywhere, legal texts, case files, yellowed newspapers. He was in his 70s, white-haired but bright-eyed, wearing suspenders and a look that saw straight through pretenses. "So," he said after I told him everything, "your son and his wife transferred the property without your consent?" "Yes," I whispered. "I don't even know how that's possible." "It's possible," he said grimly. "If someone forged signatures or misused power of attorney, it happens more often than people think. Can it be fixed?" He leaned back, tapping his pen on the desk. "It's hard, but not impossible. The paper trail will tell the truth, and the truth is still a weapon, even if it's been buried." For the first time since that awful day at the gate, I felt a spark of hope. Harold helped me draft a letter demanding full access to the sale, documents, and a record of any signature under my name. We contacted the county registrar to request deed history. The process was slow, tangled, exhausting, but every step felt like breathing again. Days turned into weeks. I spent my mornings at Harold's cluttered desk and my evenings flipping through James's sketchbook. It became my ritual. 1 hour of law, 1 hour of memory. The sketches began to speak to me differently. The house she built wasn't just a blueprint, and it was a reminder. James had designed spaces for laughter, light, and second chances. He believed in rebuilding, so I started rebuilding myself. I began walking every morning. I stopped apologizing for being alive. I even went to a thrift shop and bought a used easel, set it up by the window, and began sketching again clumsily, but with heart. Some nights, when I looked at the city lights, I imagined James sitting beside me, smiling that quiet, proud smile he used to wear when he saw me happy. A month later, Harold called. "I've got something," he said. "Come by tomorrow morning." When I arrived, he was holding a stack of documents. "You were right," he said. "Your signature on the transfer deed, it's not yours. It's a digital copy, and whoever did it didn't even match the stroke pattern properly." My hands trembled. "So it's forgery?" He nodded. "Yes, and it means the sale isn't legal." I sank into the chair, overwhelmed. Relief, rage, vindication, all of it crashed over me. Harold looked at me kindly. "We'll file an injunction. It'll be slow, but you can fight this. You have a right to what's yours, Marianne." Right then, something inside me stood tall. The woman who'd collapsed at the gate, who'd cried herself to sleep for weeks. She was still there, but she wasn't helpless anymore. I reached into my bag, pulled out James's sketchbook, and laid it on Harold's desk. "This," I said softly, "is why I'm fighting. He built that house for me. I'm not letting anyone erase it." Harold smiled. "Then let's build your case, Mrs. Cole." That night, I sat by the window, the sketchbook open on my lap. The last page, the house she built, gleamed faintly under the lamp, and I realized something beautiful and painful at once. The house was never about the walls or the roof. It was about the woman who kept standing, no matter how many times she was knocked down. James had seen her long before I did, and now I was finally meeting her. The woman who would rise, the woman who would fight, the woman who would build again, not just a home, but a self. As the rain began to fall again outside, I whispered to the night, "Greater than I'm not done yet." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I always imagined that when justice finally came, it would feel triumphant, like a sunrise after a long night. But when it arrived, it didn't glow. It burned. It started with a call from Harold. "Marianne," he said, voice steady but grave, "it's unraveling. Everything Naomi built, the company, the accounts, the listings, it's all coming apart. The investigators found evidence of document tampering across multiple sales. She's been forging signatures for years." I pressed the phone to my ear, too stunned to speak. Harold sighed. "They've frozen her assets. And Ryan, well, his company let him go this morning. His name's been dragged through every headline. He's complicit by association, even if he didn't sign anything himself." The words hit me like thunder. For a moment I couldn't tell if I felt relief or heartbreak. I walked to the window and looked out over the grey morning. The sky was heavy, swollen with rain. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. "Will they go to prison?" I finally asked. "Naomi might," Harold said carefully. "Ryan, probably not, but he's lost everything else. They've been evicted from their condo. No savings left, no job. Nothing I should have felt satisfied. After all, this was what she'd done to me. Taken everything I had, stripped me of my home, my dignity, and left me to crumble. But when I hung up, I didn't feel like celebrating. Instead, I made tea and sat in silence as the rain began to fall. That night, the phone rang again. I almost didn't answer, but then I saw his name, Ryan. My hand trembled as I picked it up. "Mom," he said softly. The word cracked something inside me. I hadn't heard him call me that in months, not since before the betrayal. "Ryan." My voice came out small, wary. "Why are you calling?" He exhaled shakily. I could hear the sound of traffic, the echo of rain against metal. We don't have anywhere to go. Naomi's at her sister's, but she won't take her in for long. I tried everything, friends, co-workers, but no one wants to be near us. The media's calling it fraud. They're saying I knew I said nothing. The silence stretched between us, long and suffocating. "Mom," he said again, breaking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I believed her. She told me everything was legal, that selling the house would help us all. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought—" He stopped. I could hear the sound of him crying quietly. For a moment I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered the day he stood in my kitchen, telling me to trust Naomi. I remembered the way he looked away while strangers walked through my living room. I remembered calling him as they carried my furniture out and hearing nothing but his silence on the other end, the same silence he'd given me when I begged him not to sell my home. I swallowed hard. "You watched it happen, Ryan? You stood there while they listed my life for sale?" "I know," he whispered, "and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." "Do you?" I said quietly, "because regret doesn't change the fact that I was homeless while you played house in my living room." "Mom, please," he said, voice cracking, "I need your help. Just for a few days, until I figure things out. I'll sleep in the car if I have to. I don't know where else to go." I closed my eyes. Rain was sliding down the window, thin silver trails that mirrored the tears on my face. My heart wanted to open the door, but my mind, my memory, held me still. "You didn't open the door for me, Ryan," I said. When I came home and strangers were walking through my kitchen, you didn't open the door, he didn't speak. You turned away, I whispered. And now you want me to turn back? His breath hitched. I deserve that, but please, just tell me you don't hate me. I let out a trembling sigh. I don't hate you, son. Hate is easy. What I feel is harder. It's disappointment. It's grief. It's love that's been bruised too many times. There was a long silence. Then very softly he said, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I wanted to believe him. Maybe I did. But forgiveness isn't a doorway you can just walk back through. Not after you've burned the house behind it. After the call, I sat in the dark for a long time. The rain had stopped, but thunder still rumbled far away, like an echo of everything that had been broken. I thought about James's sketchbook still open on the table. I traced his handwriting with my finger. The house she built. It wasn't just about walls or roofs anymore. It was about strength, boundaries, the kind of love that says no when it's time. So I didn't call Ryan back that night. I didn't rush to rescue him. Instead, I whispered a prayer, not for his comfort, but for his awakening. Because sometimes falling is the only way to learn how to stand. The next morning I met Harold at the courthouse to sign the final papers reclaiming ownership of my home. It was mine again, legally, fully, irrevocably. When I walked out into the sunlight, I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The air smelled clean, free. Harold smiled beside me. How does it feel, Mrs. Cole? I thought of Ryan, alone somewhere, and of Naomi, the woman who had tried to take everything, and I thought of James, of his steady hands and quiet faith. It feels, I said softly, like the storm is finally passing. That evening, I drove by my house. My house. The garden was overgrown, the paint faded, the curtains gone, but I didn't see ruin. I saw beginnings. A group of kids rode past on their bikes, laughing. I smiled at them, imagining the sound echoing through the walls again one day. I touched the gate, the same one I'd collapsed beside months ago, and whispered, "We're home again." The metal was cold under my palm, but it no longer hurt, because this time I wasn't clinging to what I'd lost. I was standing on what I'd reclaimed, and somewhere deep inside I knew Ryan would have to rebuild too. Not his career, not his image, but himself. And maybe one day, when he did, he'd finally understand what this house had always meant. Not a possession, not a property, but a promise. The sky was soft grey that morning, the kind of quiet before spring, when the air feels heavy but full of possibility. I was in the garden trimming the rose bushes that had long gone wild. My hands were steady now. Every snip of the shears felt like a small reclaiming of peace, of time, of myself. The house behind me stood calm and sunlit. The for sale sign was gone. The papers were cleared. The ghosts had been silenced. It was truly mine again. I was humming to myself when I heard it, the slow crunch of tires on gravel. A silver car stopped by the curb. The passenger door opened first. Naomi stepped out, wearing sunglasses too large for her thin face, her once glossy hair pulled back into a messy knot. Her suit jacket hung awkwardly, like it belonged to another life. Then Ryan emerged from the driver's side, eyes hollow, but softer than I remembered. He carried nothing but a duffel bag, no swagger, no excuses, just exhaustion. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Only the sound of birds filled the space, delicate and unbothered, as if the world itself didn't care about human ruin. Finally, Ryan took a hesitant step forward. "Mum," he said quietly. The word felt fragile, like it might shatter in the air. I straightened, brushed the dirt from my gloves, and faced them. Naomi lowered her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, rimmed with sleepless nights. "Marianne," she began, voice trembling, we didn't know where else to go." Ryan swallowed hard. "Everything's gone. The condo, my job, her license. It's all gone. We've been staying in motels. Naomi's sister won't even answer the phone. I didn't know who else to call." He looked at me with that same boyish fear I remembered from his childhood, the one he had when he scraped his knees or came home with a bad grade. But this wasn't a scraped knee. This was a wound he made himself. "I see," I said softly. My voice surprised me, calm even, almost kind. Naomi took a step closer. "We made mistakes, Marianne. Terrible ones. I let greed twist everything. I thought money could fill the emptiness, but it only made it deeper. I ruined Ryan. I ruined you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I—" "Stop," I said gently. "You don't need to explain." I already know her voice broke. "We have nowhere else to go. Please, just a place to rest." For one night Ryan's eyes pleaded silently. He didn't move closer. He didn't try to touch me. He just stood there, as if he knew the space between us was sacred ground now. For a heartbeat, I felt the old ache, the mother in me who wanted to reach out, to fix, to comfort. But then another voice rose, quieter, steadier, the woman who had survived. I looked past them at the house, the porch James built, the windows I'd repainted, the life I had fought for with trembling hands and sleepless nights. This home had been born from love, nearly destroyed by betrayal, and rebuilt by will. Ryan's voice cracked. "Mom, please, say something." I took a breath. The wind stirred the roses. Their petals brushed my wrist, gentle, forgiving, alive. Then I said the words that had waited on my tongue since the day I lost it all. Greater than I built this home once with love. I won't rebuild it again with regret. The silence that followed was heavy, but not cruel. It was the silence of truth. Naomi's lip quivered. She looked down, tears sliding behind her sunglasses. Ryan's shoulders slumped, his face crumbling like something inside him had finally broken for good. He nodded slowly. "I understand," he whispered, and for the first time, truly, I believed he did. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. "This is for you. The repayments, for the money, for everything I didn't take it. Keep it, Ryan. You'll need it to rebuild." He blinked, surprised. "You're not angry anymore." I smiled, small but real. Anger was my bridge back to myself, but I don't live there anymore. A long breath escaped him. "I wish I could go back." "You can't," I said gently, "but you can start over. Just not here, not inside these walls." He closed his eyes, tears slipping down his face. Naomi touched his arm, whispering his name, but he shook his head and looked at me once more. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said again, quieter this time, like a prayer. "I know," I said. Now go find a life that deserves your apology. Then I turned, stepped onto the porch, and placed my hand on the door, the same door that had once closed behind me in tears. Now it was mine to close in peace, greater than "Take care of each other," I said softly, "and don't come back until you've learned how to stay." And then, slowly, firmly, I shut the door. For a while I stood there, back against the wood, breathing, no shaking, no sobbing, just stillness. Outside I heard the faint sound of their car starting, then fading away down Maple Avenue. I pressed my palm to the door, the same way I used to when I prayed for Ryan to come home. Now it was a farewell, not of hate, not even of grief, but of release. The house felt warm around me. The clock ticked in the kitchen. The light moved softly across the floorboards. I walked to the living room window. Through the glass I could see my reflection, older, stronger, but peaceful. And for the first time I didn't see a woman who'd been left behind. I saw the woman who had survived. I whispered to the empty room, "We did it, James." The breeze moved the curtains gently as if answering. The roses outside swayed, their petals catching sunlight, and standing there in the doorway of the life I'd rebuilt, I finally felt it, not the ache of loss, but the quiet, sacred weight of freedom. It's strange how silence changes when you heal. It used to echo, heavy, lonely, endless. Now it hums, like the quiet between heartbeats, like peace. 6 months have passed since the day I closed that door. The seasons have turned, and the house, my house, breathes again. The garden is alive. Roses climb the fence in soft pink waves, the soil dark and rich beneath my fingertips. I planted marigolds along the path, bright bursts of gold that catch the morning sun. Sometimes children from the neighborhood stop by to help me water them. I keep extra gloves for their small hands, and cookies cooling on the porch rail. The laughter that fills this yard now isn't the old kind, not family, not blood, but it's love all the same, and I've learned that love, when it returns, doesn't always come from the same direction it left. Every Thursday evening I host the Reading Corner. It started as an idea from Ruth, my friend from the park. "You have the perfect porch for stories," she'd said. "Why not fill it with voices again?" So I did. We bring folding chairs, cushions, tea, and stacks of second-hand books, old friends, new faces, the widow from down the block, the retired nurse, the boy who dreams of being a writer. We read poems and memoirs, sometimes even my husband's old sketches. Last week I read a line from his notebook. "A home should be built to hold light." When I said it aloud, the group went silent for a moment, as if the walls themselves were listening. Afterward, Ruth squeezed my hand. "You did it, you know," she whispered. And I think she's right. I built something again, not out of brick and wood this time, but out of courage and boundaries. Sometimes in the late afternoon, I sit on the porch swing and think of Ryan. He sends letters now, small, careful ones, written in his own hand. Never excuses, only updates. He found steady work again, nothing glamorous. Maintenance at a school. "I fix what's broken," he wrote. "Feels fitting, doesn't it?" In the envelope last month, he tucked a photograph, himself in overalls, helping repaint an old library. He looked tired, older but grounded. On the back He'd written, "Learning how to build without taking away." I cried when I read that, not out of sadness, but because it meant he was finally learning the lesson I couldn't teach him before. Sometimes he drives by the house, I think. I've seen a familiar car idling across the street, never staying long. He doesn't knock. He doesn't have to. I know that when he's ready, and when I am too, there will be a day we meet again, not as the woman he betrayed, but as the mother who forgave him quietly in her own time. Naomi disappeared from the city after her court hearing. Harold said she took a job up north, working at a small design firm. I don't think of her with anger anymore, only pity and a faint kind of hope that she, too, might someday build something honest. Harold still visits every other Sunday. We sit by the garden and talk about cases, or chess, or the weather. He's become more than my lawyer. He's my friend. Sometimes he brings lemon tarts. Sometimes he brings advice. Last week he smiled at the ivy creeping along the fence and said, "You've rebuilt your roots, Marianne. The rest will follow." He doesn't know how true that feels. Inside, the house has changed, but not too much. The wallpaper's new, soft cream with faint blue vines. The floors shine again, the smell of lemon oil fresh in the air, but the essence remains. James's sketches hang on the hallway wall now, framed like a gallery of our shared dream. His old toolbox sits by the window, a quiet monument to the man who built the first version of my world. And on the mantel, there's something new, a single framed photograph of me in the garden taken by one of the neighborhood children. Beneath it, a small brass plaque engraved by Harold. The house she built, not of wood but of will. Every morning I still talk to James, out loud sometimes, when no one's around. "I did it," I tell him. "You were right. The house did hold me when you couldn't." The light hits the kitchen window around 8 a.m., just like it used to. It paints golden squares across the floor. The same clock ticks softly on the wall. The same kettle whistles on the stove. But the woman standing in this kitchen now is not the same. She is steady. She is alone and content. She knows that love and loss can live in the same room and still make peace with each other. A few evenings ago, Ruth and I hosted a garden tea for the neighbors. Laughter rolled across the yard like music. Someone played guitar, children ran between the rose bushes, and I looked around and realized the house was full again, not of family, but of life. And that's when it struck me. All this time I'd thought home meant belonging to someone, but it doesn't. Home is the place where you belong to yourself. It's not the walls that protect you. It's the boundaries you build around your peace. It's not the people who stay. It's the strength to let go of those who don't. And it's not the memories that fill the rooms. It's the courage to create new ones. Tonight, before bed, I stood on the porch and looked up at the stars. The garden shimmered in the moonlight, alive with quiet beauty. In my hand I held a small potted rose bush, a gift from Ruth. "This one's special," she'd said. "A new hybrid called Hope. It blooms in the fall." I knelt by the front gate, the same gate where I once collapsed in grief, and pressed my hands into the soil. It was cool, forgiving. As I planted the rose, I whispered, "For everything I lost and everything I found." When I was done, I sat back on my heels and smiled. The air smelled of earth and rain. Somewhere in the distance a dog barked, a car passed, a wind chime sang, and I felt it, that quiet hum again. Not loneliness, not emptiness, just life. Later, as I walked back inside, I paused at the doorway, the same one where I once said goodbye. I ran my hand along the frame and whispered, "You kept me standing." The floor creaked under my steps, a familiar sound not of age, but of memory. I turned off the lights, leaving one lamp glowing in the living room, casting its warmth through the window. From the street, it would look like any ordinary home. But I know better. This house, the house she built, is more than timber and tile. It's the proof that even after betrayal, after silence, after loss, a woman can rise again. Not the same as before, but stronger, wiser, free. And as I climbed the stairs, I caught my reflection in the glass. Silver hair, soft eyes, and a faint smile that finally reached them. I whispered to her, the woman who had once thought she was finished, greater than welcome home. And this time I truly meant it.